A fire is lit. The winter of 2008 would become the turning point in Zohran's life. His mother fainted at work due to exhaustion, dehydration, and untreated anemia. She had been working double shifts at the pharmacy, skipping meals so her son could eat better. When Zohran arrived at the hospital, he saw his father sitting on a plastic chair, head in his hands, trembling ever so slightly. "Abba, what happened?" Zohran whispered. His father lifted his face, eyes red, voice strained. "She collapsed. They're running tests. They say we need insurance to continue some treatments. I don't know how we will manage." Insurance, medical bills. The words felt heavier than any textbook Zohran had ever carried. He stood in the hallway, heart racing, watching nurses move like clockwork. His mother's hands, soft from years of service, sacrifice, and silent love, were now tethered to IV drips. He leaned closer to her and said, his voice cracking, "Hami, I promise, I will fix this. I don't know how yet, but I will fight, so nobody has to go through this again." Her fingers curled gently around his. "Beta, don't lose your kindness while fighting the world. That's all I ask." That night, Zohran didn't sleep. He sat near the window, watching New York's cold wind press against glass. Somewhere deep inside, pain turned into purpose. He didn't want money or comfort. He wanted justice. The true turning point came when his mother collapsed one winter evening while working her second job at a cashier counter. Overworked, exhausted, and untreated for high blood pressure, she fainted mid-shift. Zohran rushed to the hospital, his heart pounding. He held her hand as she lay unconscious, her pulse weak but steady. The hospital bill came 3 days later, $18,600. His father stood with the paper in his hand, silently staring, not crying, not angry, just defeated. Something inside Zohran broke and remade itself. He spent nights at the kitchen table, writing letters to local representatives, community groups, health advocates. Most didn't respond. A few sent generic pamphlets, but he did not stop. He attended his first protest outside a hospital in Manhattan, holding a poster that read, "Healthcare is a right, not a luxury." His voice trembled when he shouted, but it didn't break. Standing there, surrounded by people of every color and faith, he felt something new, not loneliness, but power. His journey into activism had begun, politics from the pavement. He started small, organizing free tutoring for immigrant kids, translating legal documents for Urdu and Hindi-speaking families, helping tenants fill out housing forms. He joined community meetings where nobody his age ever sat. When politicians visited during elections, he asked hard questions not with anger, but with clarity. Why are there no hospitals in immigrant neighborhoods? Why do our buses stop early while Wall Street trains run all night? Why do we work the hardest and still sleep the least? Some ignored him. Some gave rehearsed answers. But some listened. At 19, while studying at Queens College, he volunteered for a city council campaign, not for money, not for recognition, but because the candidate promised one thing: to listen. He knocked on doors in the freezing cold, handed out flyers, debated people on sidewalks. Most doors shut. Some stayed open. When the candidate lost, the team cried, but Zohran didn't. Instead, he stayed up all night writing in his journal. One loss does not mean we stop. It means we train harder. The next year, he decided, he wouldn't just campaign for someone else. He would run, against all odds, the campaign. At 28, Zohran made a decision that shocked even his closest friends. "I'm running for New York City Council," he announced. His father looked at him carefully. "Beta, this path is hard. People will try to break you." "I know," Zohran said. "But if not us, then who?" There was no wealthy donor, no giant campaign fund. Just hope Handwritten posters, WhatsApp groups, and endless footsteps. Zohran and his team, mostly students, baristas, cab drivers, knocked on doors in sun, snow, and rain. Salam, my name is Zohran Mamdani. I'm not here to ask for your vote first. Tell me what this city has taken from you. Some doors closed, some laughed, but many hearts opened. A single mother struggling with rent, an old jazz musician who'd lost his pension, a teacher tired of buying her own classroom supplies. On election night, the results came slowly. The room was silent. Then numbers shifted. Queens District 22 turned blue, not just with politics, but with belief. He won. His mother cried quietly. His father placed his hand on Zohran's head in prayer. And Zohran, holding back tears, said only one thing. This victory is not mine. It belongs to every home where parents whisper at night about the price of rent, food, and dreams. From councilman to mayor of New York, Zohran Mamdani's journey from city councilman to mayor of New York City was not a story of power. It was a story of people. As a councilman, Zohran didn't spend his days behind polished desks or giving speeches in grand halls. He spent them in crowded apartment buildings with peeling paint, on subway platforms where tired faces waited for delayed trains, and in community centers where working families fought to be heard. He walked through public housing units in winter, where radiators were silent and children slept in coats for warmth. He sat with senior citizens whose rent had doubled overnight, and with young immigrants who dreamed of college but feared deportation more than failure. He listened, really listened. Unlike other politicians, he did not arrive with promises. He arrived with pen, paper, and questions. What do you need? How can we fix this together? His first victories were small, but meaningful. A repaired boiler, a working subway elevator, funding for after-school programs, free legal aid for tenants facing eviction. He never called these achievements his, he called them ours. Word spread. People from Harlem to Brooklyn, from Queens to the Bronx, began to say, he shows up when no one else does. But with recognition came resistance. Some powerful developers and political figures saw him as a threat. He received warnings like, you're making enemies you don't even know. You're helping people who will never donate to your campaigns. He responded simply, I didn't run to be comfortable. I ran to be useful. As years passed, his reputation was no longer just local, it became a citywide whisper of hope. He was invited to speak at schools, union halls, mosques, churches, and graduation ceremonies. In every room, he repeated the same belief. Leadership is not speaking louder, it is listening better. Then came the moment that changed everything. New York was suffering, housing costs rising, public transit failing, trust in government at its lowest. During a town hall meeting, a teenage girl stood up and asked, voice trembling, if people like you don't run for mayor, then who will fight for us? The room fell silent. That night, Zohran went home to his parents' small apartment in Queens. His mother placed her hand on his shoulder and said softly, if you do this, do it with the same heart you had when you were helping neighbors before anyone knew your name. His father nodded, eyes filled with quiet pride. And remember, you are not running for power. You are running for people. So he announced his candidacy, not with fireworks or expensive ads, but standing on the steps of a public library in Queens, surrounded by teachers, cab drivers, shopkeepers, janitors, and children holding handmade signs. His slogan was simple, a city that works for everyone. And with that, the journey from councilman to mayoral candidate began not as a climb up the ladder of politics, but as a deeper walk into the hearts of the people. The first immigrant mayor of New York City. New York City, the land of immigrants, glass towers, subway dreams, and sleepless ambition had seen millionaires, war heroes, lawyers, businessmen, and political dynasties as mayors, but never someone like him. A city that didn't see him coming on a chilled November night. the city pulsed with nervous energy. Screens in Times Square flashed election results. In cramped apartments of Queens, Harlem, and the Bronx, families held their breath. The ballots were being counted. In a small living room in Astoria, Queens, sat an elderly immigrant couple. Their television was old, held together by duct tape. On the wall, a faded photo of their younger son holding a school trophy. That boy was now on the brink of something unimaginable. Zohran Mamdani, born to immigrant parents, raised in a one-bedroom apartment, now leading the race for mayor of New York City. His mother clutched a tasbih, prayer beads. His father sat silently, fingers trembling on the remote. The news anchor's voice broke the silence. With 98% of votes counted, New York City has elected its next mayor, Zohran Mamdani. His mother cried before she could say a word. His father stood, walked to the window, and whispered into the cold night air. From Kampala to Queens, to City Hall, the oath, under the winter sky. City Hall stood dignified under a pale winter sun. More than 20,000 people filled the courtyard. Construction workers, taxi drivers, teachers, street vendors, all dressed in heavy coats and heavier hope. Zohran stepped onto the stage, not in a designer suit, but in the same simple style he always wore. His parents sat in the front row. His mother's eyes couldn't stop watering. His father held a small Quran in his hands. The Chief Justice raised her voice. "Do you, Zohran Mamdani, solemnly swear to serve the people of New York City?" He placed his hand on the Quran and said clearly, "I swear, for the people who never had a voice, for those working 2 jobs and still sleeping hungry, for the child who studies under streetlights because the power was cut, for the immigrant who was told he doesn't belong here, I swear." The crowd erupted. Some cried, some hugged strangers, some whispered, "Finally, someone like us." He became the first immigrant, first South Asian, first Muslim-born mayor of New York City. His first words as mayor. He stood before the microphone, heart pounding louder than applause. "My parents arrived in this city with only 2 suitcases and more worry than money. They cleaned floors, sold groceries, delivered medicines. Not because they dreamed of power, but because they dreamed of dignity. I am their son. I stand here not because I am special, but because New York is." Silence fell. He continued, "This city belongs to the janitor on the night shift, to the cab driver eating dinner from a paper bag, to the undocumented worker who builds skyscrapers but cannot afford an apartment. From today, City Hall's doors will never again be closed to them." Asterisk, asterisk. The crowd chanted his name. The hardest job begins being mayor wasn't like winning, it was like waking up to a wounded city. Public housing without heat. Subways breaking down. Daily, 60,000 homeless. Sleeping in shelters. Hospitals closing in poor neighborhoods. Hate crimes against immigrants rising. People warned him, "Don't promise too much. Don't touch powerful interests." He smiled and said, "I didn't come to play safe. I came to make change." He spent his first day not in his new luxurious office, but in a homeless shelter in the Bronx. His second day, talking to subway workers at 4 a.m. His third day, walking through a public housing building with leaking ceilings. A city that began to believe again months passed. Old apartment heaters were repaired. Subway upgrades began run by workers, not corporations. Hospitals in poor neighborhoods received funding. Evictions were frozen during winter. Free night schools for working adults opened in public Libra.